Welcome to Phacilitate's digital content platform. We're here in Miami at our annual event, and I have Peter Olagunju, Senior Director for Technical Operations at Bluebird Bio, joining us. Thank you very much, Peter, for joining us here today.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
So Bluebird and your partnership with Celgene made some really big headlines I saw just at the end of last year with their CAR-T results in multiple melanoma. Obviously, this is going to create lots of challenges as you upscale it and as we drive towards commercialization. Could you perhaps reflect on some of the opportunities and challenges that are presented with this field ever expanding?
Yeah, absolutely. So just in general, one of the challenges in the industry is that when you are fortunate enough to get profound data in a clinical trial, there are now opportunities within the cell and gene therapy space for accelerated clinical development and being able to get to that commercial endpoint sooner. And so with that said, some of those opportunities, Bluebird Bio has made public releases with respect to our adaptive pathway in Europe. In the US, of course, there's breakthrough designation opportunities. Some of our competitors like Kite and Juno have taken advantage of that. And so what this does, it's exciting because it gets these products to patients sooner. However, it does create a tension point within the CMC function of an organization. So the chemistry, manufacturing, and controls. And that tension point is, how do you obtain product and process understanding in an expedited or accelerated time frame? So to be able to get to the point where you could validate your process, to be able to get to the point where you can execute process performance qualification protocols, to show that you have some reliable confidence in how that process is performing and that you could set ranges and specifications. These are all things that are expectations of regulatory authorities. However, we've now condensed the time frame to get that understanding and information. So that's one of the paramount challenges that we face. It's a good challenge because it does mean that we have this opportunity to get these products to patients. And we take that opportunity very seriously. It's a responsibility, but it does require us on the CMC side to identify solutions to be able to encounter that.
And when we talk about this as a global therapy, there's going to be lots of infrastructure in supply chain and logistics that are going to be challenging to create it to commercial scale. Perhaps you could touch on some of the bringing even the raw materials and bringing the products or the cells from patients. And perhaps you could reflect on some of the processes and maybe some of the tension points that you expect at that area.
Absolutely, absolutely. So for the typical autologous therapy, that starts with a starting material of the patient's immune cells. We call those CD34 positive cells. So that's the starting material into your manufacturing process. And this is what truly makes the therapy a personalized therapy. Traditionally, those cells have been fresh, so introduced fresh, not in a frozen state, into the manufacturing process. And the challenge or tension point that presents is shelf life. So in my previous life, we had a product that had an 18-hour shelf life. And so you can imagine from a logistics perspective, that does create a number of constraints and challenges. One of the things it does as well is it requires a manufacturer to set up in-market operations and infrastructure for collecting those cells. So essentially going to the patient to be able to bring those cells to the manufacturing facility. We've been able to advance our technology and our approaches to extend the shelf life of those materials. And now there are a number of companies that are actually freezing that starting material to allow even more latitude going into the manufacturing process. But these are all key considerations when you think about the global supply chain.
And what about the training? I mean, if you're harvesting these cells from the patients, you have to train all the staff in the hospital, even the logistics people. What kind of measures are Bluebird Bio doing now, or certainly preparing for, as their product is going to come onto the market, I'm sure?
Absolutely. It's a key point that you bring up there, just because a number of these hospitals and institutions, they perform these collections, therapeutic apheresis collections, on a routine basis. So they're skilled in that. However, each client has their own specific parameters for their process. And a number of these institutions are supplying this material for multiple partners. So they're going back and forth. And so the element that you brought up is very key. training and guidance, and having a system, a program to onboard these sites to really be able to communicate what your needs are, but in a routine fashion have a communication loop as well that allows for that feedback, to understand where are there areas of improvement, what additional documentation that you could implement to improve the process. So this is all key when we talk about an oversight mechanism of onboarding these institutions, our partners.
Well, I know from certainly looking at the room that this manufacturing process is going to be the hot topic for the next 12 months, certainly at our events, and I look forward to hearing more about the progress of Bluebird Bio and indeed the rest of the fields, and thank you very much for your time. I appreciate
Absolutely.
it. Cheers.
Appreciate it.